Hey nerds, we are going to do a review and breakdown of Dune Prophecy, Episode 6, the season finale, starting now. Welcome to the Nerd Social. I am Colin. So, the title of Episode 6 is The High-Handed Enemy. It is written by Elizabeth Padden and Suzanne Wrubel, and is directed by Anna Foerster. The spoiler-free logline of this episode is: as Tula contends with her true identity, Valya's maneuvering leads her into an epic confrontation with an increasingly powerful Desmond. So my spoiler-free thoughts on this season finale is that the Harkonnen sisters are the master puppeteers. I haven't seen a series where there's so much focus on the people in control of the chessboard and pulling all the strings. And you get to come up with these questions of justification of their actions, whether or not it is virtuous or not virtuous, whether you understand their actions or not. Those are really good questions that are up to serious debate throughout this series. This season finale stuck the landing. It tied up a lot of storylines. There were shocking deaths, some resolutions to questions that appeared at the beginning of the season, and then all throughout there was some resolution to that, which was great. There's also great use of using past events to show the consequences of choices and actions in the present time of the episode. So there definitely crumbs that were there in previous episodes. They were able to have a very good resolution as well. There are also still questions remain within this episode, which is going to hopefully be addressed in a season 2, and HBO has already confirmed that Dune Prophecy will be returning for a season 2, which is good news for all Dune fans, but also fans of this particular series. In terms of rating, I would give this episode a 10 out of 10, which is a theater rental. I think that in all overall sense, you had everything you want in a finale, and I'm very looking forward to season 2 and how it transpires. So those are my spoiler-free thoughts on this episode. If you would like to hear more about Dune Prophecy and other content we put out there, please like, share, subscribe for more. We really appreciate your support as we are growing as a channel, and we thank all of our followers that are on all of our social media platforms. So without further ado, spoilers ahead for the season finale of Dune Prophecy. So we actually start off at a point where we've actually seen from the first episode, where, if you recall, there was some tension within the sisterhood as to who is going to reign due to Mother Rakella's death. And we've seen Mother Rakella come back reincarnated in several episodes through one of the disciples, Ella, who also happens to be her great-granddaughter. And so the legacy of Mother Rakella and then the tension between Dorothea and Valya really comes to blows, but this time it's coming from a different perspective, as Tula was able to see what had happened when we saw that Valya ordered Dorothea to kill herself. And we also see younger versions of Francesca, as well as a younger version of Kasha, who died earlier in the series. So it's a nice tie back to this scene that happened in the first episode and brings it all in perspective. Now I can see the grander vision of what they're doing, and I pointed out that they should have done more to look at Valya and Tula's backstory, and then they sprinkle it in between episodes. Especially there was a big flashback in episode 3. It made sense for them to not have the story be continuing and move on to the present, based on what we saw here in this first couple of scenes of this season finale. Then we get jump into the present time frame of the episode, where Sister Nazir, who is also a doctor, finds out what is causing the deaths of Kasha and also of Pruitt. They found out that it was a virus. Sister Nazir is trying to fight the virus so that they're able to figure out how to counteract the powers that Desmond Hart has had throughout this season. And of course, she was unsuccessful and she died. However, Tula was able to glean something out of it based on the findings that Sister Azir had. Here we see that Kieran Atreides, who has been a bit player in this series, is starting to have a more prominent role. We know that he does not have any love for the Harkonnens because of what had happened with his family being slaughtered by Tula. And even though there is some animosity, some hatred toward the Harkonnens, Kieran Atreides still finds Desmond very detestable. So in this scene, Desmond is trying to seek information from Kieran, but Kieran still refuses because Desmond assumes that the Sisterhood and the rebels are working together to overthrow the Imperium, whereas that wasn't the case. One of the sisters was part of the rebellion, but it doesn't seem from the series as we've seen that they were very aligned, even though you might say that they're aligned, but they're really not, because what they're doing is separate from what the Grand Master Puppeteer Valya Harkonnen is doing. In this scene, we see there was an imprint that happened with Francesca and the Emperor at a very young age. This is why it was preordained that the Emperor was going to be the Emperor. There was a scene in the past, which we'll see later, where Francesca had the eyes for the Emperor when the Emperor was not the Emperor, and Valya already had this all planned out at the very beginning. The Emperor is trying to get Francesca to stay and to acknowledge the fact that he's in an affair and know that Natalia, the Empress, is not really in his life anymore. Francesca then goes back to the Harkonnen house and reports back to Valya as to what's been going on with the Emperor. Valya then plots to replace the Emperor with Yanez by using Francesca as the bait. The master puppeteer here at work, knowing that she has been at this for decades, ever since she was young and became Mother Superior. This is the scene where I was talking about, where the artificial intelligence general was finding the right bloodline for the continuance of the Imperium. And we also find out the power of Tula's child and why is Tula's child important. Again, in the previous episode, we assumed that Desmond Hart is the son of Tula. We get confirmation later on in this episode about that, but at this moment of the episode, we haven't really gotten full confirmation of that fact. We jump back to present day, and Desmond calls out the Emperor for all of his shenanigans with Francesca. The Emperor is just floored and shocked as to what is going on here. Why is it that Desmond seems as though he was loyal, but he's not, and at a point of confusion for the Emperor as to how to approach this guy who is growing in power, but he is at the same time losing power. Here we see Leela, who has been taken over by Dorothea, takes back control of the Sisterhood, with Tula having gone away from Logline to go see Desmond Hart. There's a power vacuum that's happening. And so with that, Dorothea is able to show the sisters what had happened with her during the time when Valya basically purged all of those non-conformist, non-loyalists within the Sisterhood. Valya had a plan to break Yanez out because she believes that Yanez is the future ruler of the Imperium. We get to see this whole charade about power has been controlled by Valya all this time. And we later find out that it might be another person that's trying to manipulate power in their own way. Now, we assumed that the season that Desmond Hart was the guy who was going to be the person manipulating power, but it seems as though he is a puppet to whoever is controlling these. We never get to find out this season who that thing is, but at the end of this episode, there's some inklings that it might have to do with the sandworms on Arrakis. We find out that the Empress Natalia exposes the Emperor's games, and the Emperor wanted Natalia to go to all the other planets on a goodwill mission, while Natalia refuses. And it was explained to the audience by Valya that these two were in a political marriage, and this was going to maximize the potential of the Imperium rule, but at the same time produce an heir that would be under the guidance of the sisterhood. And so that is the reason why they came together. It wasn't out of love or romance, because obviously we find out that the Emperor is really in love with Francesca. And so think of this as more of a marriage convenience or of politics. And we see that Natalia has also been trying to play the board as well, with Desmond being the person that is behind the scenes trying to be the usurper of Javiko's power. Javiko is definitely shell-shocked by the whole situation. He sees that the walls are closing on him. At this point in time, he doesn't know what he's going to do. He feels betrayed by his daughter. His son is commanding the fleet. His wife is betraying him. And Francesca refused all of his advances. So he's a man that's lost at this point in time. This feeling he has is confirmed by Valya that his time is at an end. Basically, Valya just flat out told him the truth that your services are no longer needed. We get to find out later on what he's going to do with this knowledge. Kieran and Yanez had been captured. They have been plotted by Valya to escape. Here you see that Theodosia has taken the place of Yanez as a prisoner. So we get to find out the full use of Theodosia. This is a payoff of the times in which she had done the transformation. We saw that at the earlier episode with her transforming into Griffin. And we don't get to see the transformation that's going on. We saw that she did the transformation in a back alley under the watchful eye of Francesca. The Emperor is with Francesca and they go back and forth. Francesca cannot go through with killing the Emperor because there's definitely love that's there, not just because of the imprint that she has had on him, but there's a deeper love that's there for Javiko from Francesca. And so the only thing that he can do is to commit suicide. He felt that he had no agency and no power throughout his life. Knowing the fact that Valya was the one that picked him to become emperor, and knowing the fact that all this has been picked for him to be a puppet, he said that this is the only thing in which I could do in order to take back agency. We then get to see Natalia comes in and stabs the medicine cyanide into Francesca's neck, and therefore Francesca dies. A very tragic end to two pretty tragic characters, but we see that Natalia is also very ambitious, trying to take power for herself with Desmond by her side. Lila/Dorothea here destroys Eneral and basically exposes all the lies of the Harkonnen sisters. We don't know what's going to happen with the sisterhood and how it's going to move forward. Hopefully it's going to be addressed in season 2. We then get to see the flashback of Tula's fateful decision of giving away Desmond. We find out that Desmond is the son of Tula. And so with Francesca's help, they were able to switch the baby, and the baby is then taken away. And basically what happened is Tula then admits to Valya that the baby died as a stillborn. And so throughout these decades, Valya actually does not know that her son stayed alive, which will be revealed later on near the end of this episode. This is a cool scene. This is actually from the trailer as well, where Valya tries to fend off Desmond's guards so that Kieran and Yanez can escape onto a ship to go somewhere. We find out that they eventually go to Arrakis, but at this point, they are trying to escape. Tula here is on the ship to try to get to Seleucia Secundus to see Desmond and trying to appeal to him to stop all the madness and also for her to see her son. Desmond and Valya has a confrontation. It seems as though both of them has sustained a lot of injury because of their confrontation. This part of it is that Valya is in a dream sequence trying to save Griffin. So it cuts between younger Valya and older Valya here. And Griffin eventually says that it was Valya's fault that he died. Tula asked her to not fight against the virus that's been taken over in her body. And if you keep fighting, that you're going to suffer the same fate as the council members, as Pruitt, as Kasha. So she is trying to convince her not to fight and to embrace the virus that's in her body. Valya was able to survive, and through this fever dream was able to understand the meaning of the two eyes. And we saw that back in a previous episode where all the acolytes were drawing the eye that were in the middle. We thought it had to do with Desmond or the sandworm, but it had to do with the machine eyes that were programming Desmond by taking out his eye to deliver this biological weapon. And we don't know if the machines have returned to be the greater threat here, because Valya has been the greater threat to all the other chess pieces in this game, but we find out that there's a bigger threat. And we don't know whether or not they are machines or they're sandworms. We are not really sure what that is. This is where Tula admits to Valya that Desmond is her son, and confront the fact that Valya thought he was dead. Tula said, no, he's not dead. He is alive. He's right behind me. Valya was very shocked and didn't know how to react to this bombshell of an admission from Tula. Tula was very resigned to the fact that they are both two wolves. It refers back to the second episode title. And the way that she talks about it is that we have done all this manipulation to survive and to gain power. And for what? The fact that I had to give up my son and it wasn't worth it. And so Valya then told her that basically you're on your own, and whatever happens, I don't really approve of it. And she leaves for Arrakis. So this is the scene where she tells Tula that she's on her own. Desmond, on the other hand, is lying on the ground, really suffering from all the injuries from the confrontation had with Valya. They had a little bit of a brief embrace and also acknowledgement that he knows that Tula is his mother. Tula then thinks that Desmond would show some mercy because of what he knows now. However, Desmond basically asks his guards to arrest Tula, and she is seen getting moved away, presumably to a prison. The final scene starts with the sandworm, and we find out that Valya, Yanez, and Kieran arrive on Arrakis. We know from a previous episode that there's some sisters that are on Arrakis in a safe house. And we saw that Michaela was one of the individuals that was ordered by Valya to go to Arrakis. So that's where the first season ends. And there's a lot of questions as to what's going to happen with Natalia, with Desmond, with Tula, and how is that going to transpire. We also want to find out what's going to happen with Yanez while they're in exile, and how does Kieran Atreides get involved with this? What's going to be his role in season 2, and how Valya is going to have the quest to seek out who is the actual mass manipulator, because Desmond is a tool for whoever is controlling the puppet strings in this Dune universe. So those are my thoughts about Dune Prophecy episode 6. We would like to hear what you have to say about this episode. So please comment down below, like, share, subscribe for more content like this, and we will see you in the next video. All right, take care, everybody.